So today I read 5 more horror novels, and we are going to talk about whether they are worth it. I'm going to say this one's probably not going to be very good, because 3 of these were rereads, and 2 of those were children's books. So let's discuss these 5 books in the order that I read them. I think this is the order. I just swapped these ones around. So first up, we're going to talk about, this is not actually a horror novel, it is a set of short stories, and that is Night Shift by Stephen King. So this was a reread for me. Night Shift is, I believe, his first set of short stories, and it is very fun. We have some Salem's Lot stuff in here, we got some Stand stuff in here, we have just lots of really kind of goofy stuff in this one. This is where Children of the Corn's from. The Mangler, Graveyard Shift, all those fun ones that did get movies. The Lawnmower Man, fun. Oh yeah, this for me is very much kind of the pinnacle of 70s King, where it's a little bit goofy, a little bit weird, but it is at its core very, very fun. It does really show you just how good this man is gonna get in the next 50 years. And so this one I did give 5 out of 5 stars. It is a good one. I'm pulling you over here. Oh god. Is this good? So right now, talk about it's fantastic. After that, we do have The Soul of Anna Klein by Terrell Meidner. And this leads you to believe that it's kind of a science fiction story, maybe kind of like science fiction plus possession. What it is a courtroom drama. This is not a good book, and it pretends it's going to be a good book. It is mostly concerned with the idea of the soul. And if you go in here and you look at the copyright page, it is copyright 1977 by the Church of Physical Theology. And I don't know anything about the Church of Physical Theology, but when I saw that it was from a church or like a theological perspective, then I understood a lot more. It's very dull. It's very dull because it is mostly, instead of being about, like it says on the back, where it says it's about this man who's trying to like figure out about like what's going on with his daughter. She got like this kind of like spirit death, whatever. It's about him really trying to get the death penalty. It's about the courtroom. It's about a big discussion about what constitutes a life. And really this could have maybe be saying stuff about maybe like lobotomies. I don't know. But it wasn't good, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Like, look at this cover. This is a sick cover. It's boring. 1.5 out of 5 stars, and it is for sure worse than Night Shift. So after that, I've got us a children's horror here. That is Bad Hair Day by R.L. Stine. So Bad Hair Day follows Tim, and Tim wants to be a magician. Unfortunately, he's not very good at, and also his little sister knows karate and keeps interrupting his like magician shows by hitting him. And I'm pretty sure this is the only reason people are still coming to his magician shows. Now, fortunately for Tim, his favorite magician's coming to town. So he sneaks out, he goes to the show, and he steals his favorite magician's like magic briefcase, and then he turns his little sister into a rabbit. This one has a lot of nostalgia points for me, and I don't think I can take off the nostalgia glasses for Bad Hair Day, because this was a book that I read a lot as a kid. I read it over and over and over and over again. But I do realize that it, like, when I say he turns his little sister into a rabbit, because that kind of finishes off my little summary, that happens at about here. No, that's actually the preview for Egg Monsters from Mars. That happens at about here, because at first they just play with all these magic tricks, and as a 27-year-old who is a very fast reader, this doesn't take me long to get to when he turns his sister into a rabbit. But I could see where a 7-year-old might get bored. So I did give it 5 out of 5 stars, but those were all nostalgia points. It is, however, I do think it is better than The Soul of Anna Klein. So I'm putting it above The Soul of Anna Klein. It is not as good as Night Shift. Alright, then we've got Perfect Nightmare by John Saul. And I will say that this one does kind of lean more towards a thriller than a horror novel. But I do think I'm going to count it as a horror novel, just because John Saul to me is a horror novelist. It's like, he can't write stuff for the children and then not be like sort of pigeonholed in my mind as a horror novelist. So this is about this family, and they lived in. It's something to do with New York City. I really don't understand how New York City works, but so they have this house, but he works in a different part, and he has to live in like a little apartment. The dad does, and they can't afford it, and so they're just all going to move to closer to dad's work. Unfortunately, there's a serial killer or slash kidnapper who has been going to open houses and kidnapping people that fit his perfect little fantasy. I don't want to say much more than that because there's a lot going on here. I will say a little bit of a trigger warning for childhood sexual abuse. If you read Stuff for the Children, it's not as bad as the cats. It's different. It's like the cat scene, but different. Like there's no cats involved. But like it reminded me of that scene just based on how it was kind of played. Don't know who hurt John Saul, but that's that. So yeah, there's the twist didn't surprise me. It surprised me that he actually did it because I kind of guessed it and I was like, it's not going to be that because that doesn't really quite make sense. But then he did it and I was like, oh okay. But what did surprise me was the reason for the twist. So there was that. Like the reasoning for the killer. But no, I thought it was fun. It was definitely more of a thriller than a horror novel, but it was definitely a fun time. And I did give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. However, even though I technically gave Bad Hair Day a higher rating, I am going to put it above Bad Hair Day because I would recommend Perfect Nightmare above Bad Hair Day, unless of course you are 8 years old, in which case I would recommend Bad Hair Day. All right, and the last one is another Goosebumps one, and it is Beware the Snowman. And this is another one that I know has nostalgia points on it. This is another one that I read 1,000 times as a kid. But Beware the Snowman is about this girl, and her aunt decides to move her from Chicago to the Arctic Circle for fun. And when she gets there, she realizes that this town, that all the snowmen in this town, of which every like yard has a snowman, they all have a yard snowman, and it all looks like this. And that's weird. That's a weird situation. But then she learns that there's like apparently the snowman that lives on top of the mountain, and he's evil, and they build the snowman so that he doesn't kill them in their sleep. So there's a lot going on there. What I really like about this book is the atmosphere. Being from North Dakota, winter horror always gets me. It always gets me because I know about the absolute terror of sitting in a car during a blizzard and you can't see the road, you can't see anything, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying unlike anything else. And I always, sorry, my Funkos are leaning back, and I always am just like, winter horror always gets me. But again, like Bad Hair Day, not much really happens in this book. And what does happen is fairly stupid. However, I am going to put it above Bad Hair Day. I did rate it 5 out of 5 stars. Again, it was nostalgia points, but I do think it is better than Bad Hair Day just for like that winter horror aspect. I think it was actually done pretty well, or maybe I'm just like ultra sensitive to it. But that is my ranking for the last 5 horror books I've read. Night Shift, Perfect Nightmare, Beware the Snowman, Bad Hair Day, The Soul of Anna Klein. I do think, like I said, the best one in the stack, one I'd recommend the most, is Night Shift. It is a fantastic set of short stories. If you haven't read them, if you are new to horror, I think they're a good short story collection. And I think that if you are new to horror and you want to kind of get into Stephen King, because he's kind of the big man on campus, Night Shift is a pretty good place to start. So yes, that is everything. I will talk to you later, and goodbye.